So yeah, hi, I'm Matt Dodd. I am a 3D artist at Skyhook Games. I worked with Craig at LMA and Beth at LMA, and I taught Kitty for, was it 2 years, 3 years?
2.
2 years. Yeah, I left the COVID. But yeah, today I'm more going to talk about just like my experience in the industry and trying to show that what you study might not always be what you focus on in the industry. I'll go through where I started. When I left uni, I worked in a small indie company called Cosmonaut Studios, in a game called Eternal Threads. The title just kept changing and changing and changing. It took me a while to find out what it was finally called when it released. We were a small independent studio. We had a team of like 7 or 8. When I first started, I was focused on 3D props and prop art. But coming into here, I actually started just working on retopologizing objects. So we had a 3D scanner and we were scanning all objects, and they were coming out at like a couple of million tries. So for a bit of a mundane task, we were tasked with just getting them into ZBrush, getting them down to about 1,000 tries. We'd done that for a good few months, and while it was a bit mundane and not what I studied, it allowed me to get the experience of working in that environment and talking to people and say building communication skills and understanding how things work. A couple of months in, we did start working on some of our own props. I've got not too far, a couple of objects here. So I worked on very small stuff because a lot of things were done by the lead artist. So there's a washing line, guitar amp, a couple of hi-fi systems. The picture in the top right is one of the scanned objects. I'm gonna figure out that way.
There you go.
Yeah, the top picture, the wireframe, that was one of the scanned objects we had. So that was something which they brought in, and we took it down to that. We had to completely redo some of the parts, like the wheels and the zips on them. But it's, looking at it now, it's not really, like, it's not got good edge flow, not got good face work, but at the time we were just trying to get things out quick, so we were just retopologizing and getting it out there. We also done a little bit of QA while there, because we were such a small company. Instead of having to hire someone, we done it all in-house. So while I never done any QA in uni or anything like that, it was something new, and we were trying to do it up to like standards of like Sony and things like that, just to make sure, like, if we did move on and go into QA, we had that there. I left and went to LMA to tutor for a few years before I got into Skyhook. I didn't get into Skyhook until the start of lockdown. I've worked on a few projects there. We are also another local company. We are based down in the Baltic. We are a studio of about 25 people, but we also hire contractors to work on stuff. So we've got like another, say, 20 people around the world who like have been in office at some point and just work for us. I actually started as a contractor. My first project with them was Destruction All-Stars, which is a PS5 game. We work closely with Lucid for that. And that's another project where I didn't do any prop modeling at all. I was completely focused on texture work. So we were doing liveries for the cars. While it's not complete prop art, we were still using some skills from it. So like the texturing skills, using Substance Painter, Substance Designer, Photoshop and Clip Studio Paint to create like masks and things like that for the vehicles. Did end up working some editor work in that as well, with in-house tools. So we were focused on Unreal for that one. The project after that was one for Google Stadia. It was called Crater. Google Stadia didn't last very long. Yeah. But I believe the game's still kind of going. I don't know whether it's on Steam at the moment. But it was a very weird project. It was the first project I started using Blender as well. I used to work in 3ds Max and Maya. This project allowed me to learn Blender. I was doing a bit of prop art, but I was only creating white boxes. I was more a middleman for that one. I created the white boxes, put them into the editor for the company we were working for, and spoke to their art director, their lead, who would then give us feedback, make sure the scales are correct. and then I'd pass it on to the other artists to do the final modeling and the final texturing. I'd then get that back, put that back into editor, get the feedback from them, and then pass it on to the other artists. Coming to the end of the project, I did actually work on some props, so I did get a little bit in there, but it wasn't too much. Third project I worked on was Train Sim World. This had no prop modeling at all until like the last few months. This was a 1.5-year project, and I worked solely in editor because I was laying the track for the DLC we were doing. It was something I've never done before, something our company had never done before. We'd worked with the company DTG, Dovetail Games, before, but what we always do is the environment art. This was our first chance of doing like a full DLC, so we done like the full route. We done what's called the Middle and Main line, so we done Leicester up to Nottingham and I think it was Derby. But that was like a year of fully in editor work, working closely with DTG, learning skills, using their tools. So I can't have any pictures of that one, unfortunately, because it's all hush hush. But we did get to do a bit of environment art at the end. We've got a couple of buildings which we worked on because we were doing the whole set, like set dressing. So while it's not really prop art and more environment art, because the world's so big, it kind of feels like prop art, if that makes sense. So these buildings on like the right and the bottom, they were all like they're all procedural, well not procedural, and they're all, I'd say about 3,000 tries each, because we had to keep them low because there was so much going on in the world. And the top, the bait box there, that's from the Creator game. That's one of the white boxes we had to create. We had to create detailed white boxes with all the animation working as well, which was something we not really done, or not like something I've not really done. For me, when I was in uni, white boxes were basic of the basics, just scale. The latest project I worked on was Lawnmower Simulator VR. We created Lawnmower Simulator during lockdown, and we got asked by Meta to do a VR version. This started off as a project like 2 artists, me and the lead. What happened is the lead ended up having to move to another project, so I was focused on all the art. So I was able to do a bit of prop modeling, but at this point I was like the lead artist on that project. So everything in this scene here I created. So it was the building, the landscapes, the hedges, the bushes, everything. Well, not the car though, not the truck, that was already made. But with this, because I was the only artist on there, I was looking into doing the lighting and the quality settings in editor, something which I never looked at in uni. When I was in uni, we were told that for like the lighting, there would be someone specific working on that in each company. While in large companies that may be the case, in small indie companies it could be a good idea to get to know other people's jobs just to help you. And I think that's what my whole point of my presentation today is, to show that while you may learn something, don't stop at that. If you're a 3D artist, look into lighting, look into design as well. If you're a designer, do look into some 3D software, because even if you can create white boxes, it's going to be really helpful to put your ideas forward. If you're a concept artist, also look into the things like UI design, because that can help you get a job, which maybe you wouldn't think of. It could help you get into the industry and, I say, get your foot in the door. I was going to talk a lot about this, but this is just the basic pipeline I work. And what I've tried to say with this was, at every stage you will be talking to someone, getting feedback from someone. So my basic pipeline is, I'd receive the concept art or design, I'd then create a white box, and then I'd go back and talk to the designer, make sure it's right. And even before that, if they didn't have any concept art and there's only a designer who's asking for things, I'd go off and create a mood board, get some reference images, speak back to them, get feedback from them to understand like this is what they want. Obviously create the white box, get feedback, make sure it's okay, then create the final version, go back to them to make sure, is this looking good? Is this what we're after? Is this the art style? And then, yeah, I'd add it to the engine and get it rendered, and we'd be good to go. as long as there wasn't any issues. The tools I use, so for like some mood boards and stuff, Photoshop, Clip Studio, Paint, and GIMP. I mostly focus on Clip Studio Paint. I do not have a license for Photoshop at the moment, so that's why I use Clip Studio Paint. I've got a license for that. GIMP is a free image editing software. The only problem is it doesn't let you do any alpha layer stuff, or that I found anyway. So if you can get a license for Photoshop, use that. If you can't, look into other programs. Modeling, I solely focus on Blender now. I did start off with 3ds Max and Maya. That is more because financial reasons, once again. Depending on where you go to work, you might be able to have a license of 3ds Max or Maya, so it could be good to know some skills, but a lot of the skills are interchangeable between all the programs. I would recommend Blender. I love Blender at the moment, and especially because it's free, but there's thousands of plugins to help you work on whatever you want to work on. Texturing, Substance Painter and Substance Designer. Obviously, I do use some image editing stuff at the same time, like Photoshop. Substance Painter and Designer, once again, that's going to be financial, but rather than paying the subscription on Adobe, Steam usually has a year-long update version for it. So I use 2023 at the moment. I paid £120 for that last year, and I've got that for life. And I can use stuff in games. I can use that for work. I just don't get the updates. Game engines, Unity and Unreal, we have only looked at them at the moment. I have used both. I've used Unreal while in uni. I've used a mix of Unity and Unreal while I've been working. At the moment, especially with the last project I worked on, my focus is more on Unity right now. But knowing both of them is going to be really helpful. And I say it's going to help you get maybe ahead of others if you know both, or even other game engines. Rendering, I use Marmoset Toolbag mostly. I'm constantly using the 30-day trials, multiple emails. But in Office, we do have a floating license for it. So when I'm in Office, we do have a proper version of it. I do have a proper version, it's just trials, so... Yeah, but Marmoset Toolbag is amazing. The lighting system in it is fantastic. When you're working on portfolio stuff, I'd highly recommend using Marmoset to get some really good renders if you're in 3D art. Blender does have, I think, Cycles and Eevee. One of them's gone at the moment, I think. But they put out some really good renders as well. I used to use like Arnold, which was in like 3ds Max and Maya. But I would recommend using a dedicated rendering software. And yeah, some final points. A good portfolio goes a long way, so make sure you do have like an up-to-date ArtStation, LinkedIn, and things like that. I actually got my Skyhook job from my boss messaging me on LinkedIn asking whether I wanted to work. A bit more formally than that. But it's really helpful in LinkedIn. You can have like links to your ArtStation, links to any website which has your work on, and people are always looking to hire people on LinkedIn. Networking is important. Leaving a good impression can get you a job. When we were in uni, we went to EGX Rest. We spoke to a lot of people there. We got into contact with people. Even in uni, we done end of year shows where we invited local companies. Some of my former students end up getting jobs from some of them. And there's also like little pub nights, like people go out and have a drink and talk, people from industry. They don't mind students going there, as long as it's not like hundreds of people. But it's a good way to like have a drink, get to know people and get into the industry. Stay up to date with programs as much as financially possible. Don't go out your way to pay hundreds of pounds like ZBrush if you're not really going to use it too much. And there's free programs like Blender. Blender's got Sculpt in it at the moment. I do know a lot of people who's trying to learn it, but they're always still going to go back to ZBrush. That's something like if you go to a company, they'll have a license for it. You'll be able to learn that on the job. Don't be discouraged if you can't get a job right away. Keep working on your portfolio and applying. Use that time as well to work on stuff you want to work on. When you do get into the industry, sometimes it's really hard to find time to work on personal projects. I struggle with that. I've got a lot of projects I've started but haven't finished. But yeah, even if you're doing like another job, say if you're in, say, Tesco or something like that, in as much spare time as you can, work on stuff you want to work on. It will help build your skills for one, and it will let you actually finish projects. I'm looking to websites like Udemy for online courses. I've got a few courses which I've done and I've learned some really good skills which have helped me in work. Some of these do tend to be like, say, £200, but a lot of the time Udemy has offers on where they drop down to £15. And there's some like massive courses, like there's one for complete Unreal and stuff like that. So I do think they're helpful. It will help you learn a lot. Yeah, any questions? Yeah.
Do you say years ago when I was learning in animation, you said that Blender wasn't an industry standard software? Is it now? Because I'm
Pretty
not
much.
up to date. Yeah, not up to date on that no more.
Yeah, especially like in the smaller companies like ours as well. We are trying to switch everyone to Blender.
Yeah.
The main reason is because it's free, but lots of people are creating the plugins to help make it a bit more industry standard. There's some amazing animators on Blender. There's some amazing artwork on Blender. The sculpting's not there yet, but it seems like it's slowly getting there. Obviously, if you go to like a bigger company, you will potentially have licenses for Max or Maya, but I would say learning on Blender and like it's going to help so much.
I think I heard Ubisoft was switching to Blender.
Really? So.
Yeah, but I know that cheapskates.
No, but
I know they were planning they would like start to train stuff, but I don't know about that.
I think it'd be a good idea because with the same with that, yeah, it's free, but say like Ubisoft, they could create their own plugins and then keep them in house. So it is going to be a bit more like becoming their own modeling software instead of just like Blender on a whole.
With Lumen and Mammoth now being in Unreal Engine, do you think that a large portion of games companies will just move over to Unreal Engine rather than creating additional LODs for the game engines?
I think a lot will. We've started looking into Houdini as well at the moment, and we're trying to bring that into Unreal. I think a lot of companies will start focusing more on Unreal, but I still think a lot of the modeling will still be in like modeling software first. I say unless, when it does improve a lot more, things may change down the line. I would say like maybe 5-10 years, but with the way everything's changing at the moment, it could be like a year or two before stuff like that happens. Yeah. Any other questions?
You were mentioning for your pipeline just now. In the beginning, there was, I think you had some sort of, you received your concept and design over there. Was there some sort of, when you received the concept and design, I guess it's some sort of a brief in there that has already been planned out by a designer, or perhaps, was it like, do you have your own input when it comes from a client or from the designer themselves?
It does, it depends on like who we work for. When it's like in-house projects, we'll have a bit more input on it. If it's from like a client and we get the design, we can say to them, not possible, or it's going to take longer, or this and that, or we'd like to change this. So we do have a bit of input, but mostly when it's client work, we'll get it and we'll just try and see what we can do. We'll have calls with them to go through it though. We won't just like get it and be like, do this. We'll be there, but like one-to-one bouncing off each other, saying like, this could be a good or better idea. This could work more, or we want to keep it like this. But with like in-house with our designers, because we actually don't have a concept artist at the moment. Our art lead does the concept art. But with the designers, we do especially for Lawnmower Sim VR, we get the game design documents. We get the brief, and then we tend to put together like the mood boards, and then is this like the art style we're thinking, is this what we're thinking? And then I'll be like yes or no, and then we'll come back and we'll change it, or we'll go with that, and then they'll create white boxes which will then dress up.
Yeah, I like the part where you just slip in the, we don't have a concept artist right now. I think it's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Thanks.
No, but say like always keep an eye out on like LinkedIn. Loads of places will be looking for staff. Well, you might be. Don't know. But no. Yeah. But that's, I mean, we do go to like a lot of the end of year shows for all like the unis. We do we do like we've hired people, like a couple of my former students at LMA work for Skyhook because of the end of year shows. They've seen their work and we've hired them, and it's something great with being local and so many local companies that we do have this opportunity to try and speak to people. I say, even if you go to some of the pub crawls type thing and just like socialize with people, get an idea of what they do, see where they work. If you got like business cards, pass out business cards. It's really helpful. Yeah.
Cool. Cheers. Thanks.